Hello there. So today I'm going to be offering my thoughts on something that I've been hearing about pretty non-stop for about a year. Chances are, you have heard of The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Let it be noted that this is a review of the book by John Green, not the movie adaptation by Josh Boone, which I have not seen. You got that down? Okay, let's get started. The Fault in Our Stars. So I want to explain to you guys first why I read this book. The first thing that you should know is that I can be an extremely emotional person. And I'm very expressive about all of my emotions. I've never been the type of person to bottle things up. That being said, the last work of fiction that I actually cried at was the last Harry Potter book. I don't know what's up with me, because I get very emotionally involved in stories, but I've never been able to cry at them. Except for when I watched Signs when I was 11 years old and it scared the living daylights out of me. That part where the alien comes out and you're just like, wah! But anyway, I've been hearing about this book and how devastatingly depressing it was for the last year or so. Several of my friends had read it, and each of them that did cried to the point where you feared that their faces had just dissolved into water. And so I was like, man, I really have to read this book. If it is really so spectacular that I can move people to that extent, I was really eager for this book to make me cry. So finally I ran out and I got a copy, and within 24 hours I had torn through this marvelously legendary wonder of modern literature, and what did I think? It was alright. I don't have anything against this book. I thought it was well written, I thought the character development was tangible, I thought it had an interesting premise, but quite plainly it was not the phenomenon I was promised. And it didn't make me cry! I know that it's basically against YouTube law to speak ill of John Green, and I have nothing against John Green. But I'm sorry, I was just not blown away by this book. To me, it read like a well-written fanfiction rather than an actual original story. Because the more I read it, the more obvious and predictable it became. There was seriously not a single line of this book that I did not see coming. Like there's this one really big part of the book that's supposed to make you go, oh my gosh, I did not see that coming. Oh my gosh. I'm reading this big part that's supposed to have me on the floor rolling over crying, and I'm just going, yeah. For me, that element of predictability was the thing that ruined this book. But the thing that bugged me even more than that about the story is the influence that it seems to have had on everybody. The effect that I have seen this book have is generally unhealthy. Something that you absolutely must understand before you read this book is that this book is quite simply a character study. All it is the telling of a tragic story that's meant to get you thinking. It is not meant to be looked at as a shining example or something to be aspired to. Because when you try to emulate this story, it not only romanticizes cancer and death, but also the total disregard for one's own life. Not to mention the sheer amount of guys that have been trying to nag their way out of the friend zone because it's so romantic, just like The Fault in Our Stars. Dude. All in all, I thought this book was pretty good. It was well written. It just simply wasn't the beautifully devastating wonder I was promised. I guess the simple way of putting it is that I would not recommend it to a friend, but I also wouldn't keep a friend from reading it. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. And now it's time for everybody's favorite part of the review, spoiler talk. If you don't want spoilers, click away from the video right now, nobody's judging. So first off, let's talk about the big first kiss in the Anne Frank house. Personally, I didn't think it was atrociously offensive, but I did think it was very inappropriate. Or rather, it was too appropriate. Because having the big first kiss in the Anne Frank house is just one of many things throughout the book that follows the theme of romanticizing death. And frankly, that's disgusting. Oh dude, that pun was not intended. Secondly, let's talk about the trip to Amsterdam itself. One of the big reveals of the book is that Gus uses his wish with the fictitious equivalent of the Make-A-Wish Foundation to go to Amsterdam with Hazel Grace. Despite the fact that they just found out that his cancer is back and that he will probably die if he is not immediately treated. And that's supposed to be all romantic and everything, but that is literally just slow suicide. It is yet another thing in this book that romanticizes dying. And then the big spoiler, click away right now if you don't want to hear it. This will ruin the entire book for you. Click away. Augustus dies. This is supposed to be a major plot twist because you're expecting Hazel Grace to die the entire time, but Augustus dies instead, which you weren't expecting. I was. Halfway through the book, it was blatantly obvious to me that he would be the one to die. Because I'm reading the book and I'm just going, well, if I were John Green, there's only one satisfactory way that I could end this book. And the way that it happened and the way that they handled it, it too romanticized death. This is a really morbid book. If you are going to read this book, you need to make sure you're looking at it as simply a story instead of something to be emulated, because trying to emulate it is very, very dangerous and slightly stupid. No, the only thing to be admired from this book is that they did not let their circumstances dictate their life. That is it. Past that, nothing. That is the only takeaway from this story. And that's really the thing that obsessed me most about this book, is that people are looking at it as this shining example of how to live your life. Honestly, I thought the book was kind of sick. And the last spoiler that I will cover is that when Hazel Grace goes to Amsterdam to hear the mysterious ending of the book An Imperial Affliction, she doesn't get an answer, and that's supposed to be really upsetting. And then she's back in America, it's after Gus's funeral, and the drunken author happens to be in the back of her car. Creepy! And the author, Van Houten, reveals that Gus messaged him before he died, and that his dying wish was for Hazel Grace to hear the ending to An Imperial Affliction. And so he starts actually telling her the ending, and she's like, hey, shut up, get out of my car! Finding out the ending of that book was the only thing that I had any major emotional attachment to in the entire story. That part just ticked me off. But honestly, for me, that was the biggest redeeming factor of the story. Because you were really ticked off that you didn't know the end of that book, and that made you sympathize with the character. And for that I say, well done, John Green, you ticked me off and I admire it. So those are all my thoughts on The Fault in Our Stars. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe and leave any suggestions of videos you'd like to see in the comments below. And if you'd like to hear some similar thoughts on The Fault in Our Stars in a prettier voice, I'll leave the link in the description below for a review by Rebecca Brown. Seriously, this girl's voice is amazing. I'll leave that below, feel free to check it out, and thank you for watching. Alright, Tommy out. Goodbye.